I'm rereading Hood Feminism, Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot by Mickey Kendall. It's an amazing book. I do want to give more passages, but I'm going to jump smack dab into the middle of the book because this hits on many of the topics that I speak about. And I am going to put the words up on the screen and I'm going to read from the book. It's Raining Patriarchy. I grew up with a traditional grandfather, and after my mother started dating the man who would become my stepfather when I was 5, I became the daughter of an equally traditional man. They're the kind of men who opened doors and pulled out chairs and sometimes put their whole foot sideways down their throat when it came to gender. My grandfather wasn't a bad man, but he was every bit of what you might expect from someone born in 1919. He was at best benevolently sexist and at worst sometimes outright misogynistic, though I didn't have that language for his behavior when he was still alive. I can look back, though, at the things he said about what women could or should do, the ways he balked at me being a tomboy, and see that he bought into the strict gender roles of his time. And then he had to deal with massive social changes over the course of his 70 years, as well as his daughters and granddaughters rejecting so much of what he expected of us. My dad is a little better. By the time he met my mom, I was already showing tomboy inclinations that were the subject of a lot of family arguments. Sometimes he opens his mouth and the patriarchy comes tumbling out on any topic ranging from what input he thinks my husband should have on my choices for my body to what I do for a living. Then he pulls back, possibly because of my reactions, and sometimes says something about modern women. Most days, my dad just buckles up, shakes his head, and lets my complete lack of investment in traditional narratives he holds dear wash over him. He loves me, though he doesn't understand me, but then I don't completely understand him either. For instance, I'm not totally sure I understand his attachment to being so patriarchal that he once asked me how my husband felt about my hysterectomy. I told him something brisk about it being my body and my husband not getting a vote, and we left it at that. He understands and appreciates that I am educated and employed, but he just can't wrap his mind around why my husband and I are so averse to traditional gender roles in some key to him ways. His attitude is patriarchy in action, which from anyone else would be an unequivocal source of conflict with me. But navigating patriarchal norms is complicated when it comes to the men who raised me and the man that I love. I can comfortably talk about feminism and the hood and so many things about masculinity and its damaging impact. And yet, the most I could do with my dad it was set a quick, crisp boundary. To be fair, we've never discussed the hysterectomy again, and he doesn't say things like that about my body to me anymore. But the fact is, he holds positions that I don't believe in. The same is true for many women in communities like mine, where sexism comes from the people we love and who we respect, even when we disagree with them. Feminists need a more realistic understanding of the complex nature of patriarchal influences on marginalized communities. Whether we are talking about inner cities or rural areas, the semi segregated nature of most working class communities plays a huge role in the patriarchal narratives are embraced. I'm sorry, in the way patriarchal narratives are embraced. These communities are largely socially and culturally homogenous, and a great majority of the residents are hyper concerned with respectability because of white patriarchal messaging about respect being reserved for those who are law abiding, religious, and at least somewhat socially conservative. The majority of residents advocate conservative values and aspire to a better life for their children. Younger residents tend to share their parents' or guardians' values. They work hard. They avoid getting enmeshed in any crime or violence around them, and they tend to avoid drugs entirely or consume far fewer than their white working middle class counterparts. Yet they face a disproportionate risk of arrest and incarceration for even the most mundane misdemeanors. In all communities, there is a minority group of youth that rebel against at least some of their community's values. They may engage in some measure of illicit activity. Some have been pushed out of school and are chronically out of work, while others are voluntary dropouts, or at least not pursuing any further education beyond high school. They lack the skills and the credentials for higher paying jobs, and cannot subsist on low wage jobs without some ways of supplementing their income. They skirt the poverty line, but generally stay above it through the underground economies. This is the part I wanted to get to. Because of a lack of respect elsewhere, the men in these scenarios value a measure of subservience and submission from women that is intended to make up from what they can't receive in the wider world. So, because they have no power in the outside world, they come home and demand it of the women. Customs that seem to directly contradict feminism, like making a man's plate and serving it to him, are a part of a configuration of norms, values, and habits that are, at their core, mainstream inside the community. Outside these communities, the idea of a woman being expected to prepare and serve her significant other can be seen as an indication that she is not his equal. As with any custom, there are certainly ways that it can be regarded as harmful, but is one of many practices specific not only to a community, but also to a relationship. So I want to stop there because honestly, in as many books and as many videos that I've seen from women outside of the Black community where the women are non white, I'm seeing these same instances of hypermasculinity, but called whatever it is in their culture, where if it were formerly um, colonized, that and they have no power because of white supremacy or whatever. These men come home and think that they get to dominate their women because they have no power outside of the home. Going down, having a hierarchy somewhere is important to them and they hold on to it. And that is the reason why you see so many men lambast consistently what feminism is for us because they don't see us as equals. And this even goes for white men if they lack power because the home is supposed to be where they are the king and they're supposed to be able to rule. And that is how white supremacy has given even the poorer men, the non-white men, a semblance of power so that they don't revolt. If they get to be a mini king and have their own little personal servant in the form of their bangmaid, then they won't be so likely to revolt against the power structures that be. That is the reason why they are struggling, failing and flailing, where women are able to actually provide for themselves and have opportunities and are doing so well academically and in the workplace because it knocks off a little bit of their armor where they were able to have that little bit of something at home. So, like I said, I just wanted to give you that part. I wanted to get to that whole lack of respect elsewhere and the reason why they are so hell bent on keeping hold of the couple of crumbs of the patriarchy that they're able to hold on to. You guys go ahead, jump in the comments, go ahead, follow Mickey Kendall, and check out this book. This book is an amazing book, and it gives a different aspect of feminism because not all feminism is the same because we don't all have the same starting points. Jump in the comments, let me know what you think. Like, comment,